What is up, Warshippers? SeaRaptor here with our weekly edition of Scuttlebutt. Thanks for coming back. I think I'm officially going to move these to Fridays for the moment. It's a little easier on the schedule, although this week is kind of an exception. I'm trying something new. I'm on the road. I'm trying to pull this off from my laptop here as I sit in a hotel room in San Antonio, Texas. Tomorrow will be the first day of PAX South here in San Antonio, and I'm here for the weekend to work the convention and hang out and see everybody. So if you're here, drop on by. I'll have more details about that later in the video. But if you're coming to PAX South, I'd love it if you would stop in and say hello. So what's been going on in the world of warships this week? Well, lots and lots of news came out literally just today. The big news of the day, patch 8.0 delayed a week. And, they're using the word delayed. I talked about this literally last week. When they announced that third round of public testing, they basically guaranteed that the patch would not drop any earlier than 30 January here on North America. So calling it a delay is kind of a misnomer. The big reason for this, of course, is that they built an extra week into the development cycle. Ordinarily, when a patch is being developed, there are 2 rounds of public testing, then a weekend off while they compile and do all their QA checks, and then the patch rolls out. For patch 0.8.0, they've decided, well, guys, this is a big deal. We're going to have an extra round of testing. And honestly, anybody who's ever looked at them about this change and said, guys, we really wish you'd take your time on this, should be excited, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking the extra time to add in another round of testing and see where it takes them. So I'm encouraged by this, the fact that we're going to have an extra week to do a lot of different things, because that's the other upside to this, is all the 0.7.12 events that we have been running since, right before Christmas, we get an extra week. We get another week of clan battles. We get another week for people to work on earning their Prinz Idol Friedrich. And we get an extra week of the Mighty Prince campaign. The only thing that's not continuing is the Nerves of Steel missions that come with Prinz Idol Friedrich itself. They will still end on Friday, 25 January. They will probably end first thing in the morning, server time. So plan on trying to finish those the night before. I would not anticipate being able to work on those on Friday. It's possible, but you'd be running a real risk that they would have cut it off. So I don't expect that to happen. But anyways, extra week there of 0712, and honestly, the fact that they're committed to putting the extra work and time into getting 0.8.0 tested properly, QA'd properly, to me is very, very encouraging. Lots of other big news coming out of the dev blog today. The first, post of the avalanche today was a simple confirmation of something that we already knew, that 60-second fire durations that were previously announced for Azuma and Alaska are in fact coming to Stalingrad and Kronstadt. This is not really shocking. This was earlier confirmed by Wargaming early last week, or in the middle of last week, I should say, but it was not officially announced through the dev blog until today. But now, definitely official, so that is coming. And this is a good thing. Singling out Azuma and Alaska for the longer fire duration, in my mind, was just unnecessarily punitive. Now they're all going to be treated more or less the same, and that makes sense. And then there was a huge post, a whole raft of buffs. Hold on to your hats, kids. These are almost all universally great changes. First, at the top of the list, if you are a Japanese battleship fan, you are just ecstatic today. All kinds of changes, good buffs coming through the line. First of all, Azuma is getting a Sigma improvement, 1.8 to 2.0. They've just continued to buff Azuma. She continues to struggle at tier 9. I think this might be the one that finally puts her over the top. Her armor's been improved, her shells have been improved. Now they're finally going to make her a little more accurate and give you a little more taste of what you're about to get to when you get to Yamato, of course, which has the best Sigma of any battleship in the game. Key is also receiving a couple of buffs. Japanese Tier 8 Premium Battleship Key is getting a torpedo change. Existing torpedoes are 6-kilometer range with fair to middling damage. They're essentially swapping these up for Akatsuki torps with a 10-kilometer range and a notable buff in their Alpha Strike. So that's interesting. It's going to make Key a little more interesting of a ship to play in certain situations. You'll be able to flex those torpedoes more with the added range. She's also getting a main battery reload buff, losing a second, bringing her from 31 seconds down to 30. Similar to Tier 7's Nagato, also getting a main battery reload buff, losing 2 seconds on her main battery reload. Currently 32, dropping down to 30. But the buffs don't stop there. They keep coming for all the Battleship fans out there. Colorado is getting a Sigma buff, and this is kind of a misnomer because this is actually returning her back to where she were. She's getting her old Sigma value back. It was nerfed at some point. I've long forgotten since when, but essentially we're putting it back to where it was, and that's good. Colorado, in my mind, for so long was such a mediocre ship. Now she's had health pool buff. She's got a fantastic heal. Now they're giving her Sigma back. She has 16-inch guns at tier 7. She's already a pretty solid ship, and this is just going to make her better. Can't go wrong here, really. Dunkirk is getting a main battery reload buff, similar to what Nagato gets, to represent the smaller, to compensate, I should say, for the smaller diameter of her main battery, dropping from 28 seconds to a 26-second reload. Dunkirk is a fun little ship if you own one. I highly recommend her if you don't. She's not like most other Tier 6 battleships. She has a very different playstyle, and you have to learn what you can and can't do with those guns. But the reload is definitely a big help. And then Hood is getting some changes that folks have been asking for a while. Tier 7 premium British battleship Hood, long maligned in the game, a very famous ship, of course, but typically not a great ship. She is getting a Sigma buff that will help. That's something that folks have asked for a long time. And she's going to get a change to the fuse timers on her AP shells. What that means is that she will more reliably deal solid, full penetration and potentially citadel damage to more heavily armored targets, but runs the risk of overpinning lighter units. And honestly, to me, that's not such a bad thing. One of the biggest problems with Hood is that she really struggled to stay in a fight and damage enemy battleships. And in fairness, you know, Hood is meant to be a battle cruiser, let's say, so that's not supposed to be her forte. But the game classifies her as a battleship. So if she's going to be a battleship, she needs to be able to damage other battleships. That's just the way that needs to work. So they're making some changes there, which should help that along. That is good to see. All the remaining changes are coming down the line, coming from destroyers. Tier 6 French premium destroyer Aigle is getting a torpedo range buff, moving from 7 kilometers up to 8 kilometers. Doesn't sound like any other stats on her torpedo range. Her torpedoes are changing, just getting a little extra range there. That's nice to see. Gives her a little more bit of a stealth window that she can work with those torpedoes. Tier 7 American destroyer Mahan is getting a main battery reload buff. That is huge. This is something Mahan has sorely needed because for so long I've considered Sims, the Tier 7 premium American destroyer, to be just strictly better than Mahan. This gives Mahan a little more of an identity and allows her to be better in the knife fights, right? The close range knife fighting that American destroyers are so good at. Speaking of Sims, Tier 7 American Premium Destroyer USS Sims getting some torpedo changes. Sims has long had 2 torpedo armaments, a very short-ranged one at 5.5 kilometers and a much more long-ranged one at 9.2 kilometers. But the 9.2 kilometer torps moved very slowly and they tickled when they landed at all. So what's happening is the 5.5 kilometer torps are getting a buff to a 7 kilometer range that will actually allow her to use them from stealth, which is a bit of a surprise. And the 9.2 kilometer torps are getting a buff out to 10.5 kilometers. That's also quite large. We no word on whether or not they're buffing the speed, but they are buffing the damage on these torpedoes. So Sims' infamous sea mines, so far as we know, remain in the game, but they will be hitting a little harder than they used to. Lastly, changes coming to the top end of the Russian destroyer line. Tier 8 Ognavoy and Tier 9 Udaloy will now receive a brand new consumable slot exclusively for Repair Party. Now, these ships lead on the branch up to Grozovoy, which already has Repair Party. This is going to put them in kind of the same, let's say, vein playstyle as the top tier ship in that line already has. So that'll be good prep work for folks grinding up the line. Similarly, Tier 8 destroyer Kiev in the other Russian destroyer branch is going to be able to equip Repair Party in the slot currently occupied by Smoke Generator. So what will happen is you'll be able to choose between Smoke and Repair, just like the 2 ships above her can, Tashkent and Khabarovsk. So they're kind of unifying how the top of the Russian destroyer lines work. Starting at Tier 8, everyone will have access to a heal. One half of the line will get it innately. The other branch will have to choose between Smoke or heal. So just a myriad of buffs coming today. All of those, as I understand it, supposedly going live in 0.8.0. So those will be on us in 10, 12 days. Lots of good stuff on that list. What else is going on? Well, there is another one of the player-created camouflage contests voting running right now. This particular camouflage is for Tier 7 Russian destroyers Minsk and Leningrad. Presumably, eventually, they will be offering these as perma-camos in the game. Generally, when they've done this in the past, they set up a mission chain or something for you to be able to earn this camo. And then, of course, players have designed it. The players vote on it. Then they render it into the game, and then they make it available through, like I said, some mission chain or something. You can go earn it. And then you have a permanent alternate camo for the ships in question. They've done this for Helena and several other ships. Now they're expanding over to Russian destroyers. So this will be fun. And the choices are really, really cool. I'll put the link down in the video description. Some really, really cool stuff. Definitely go vote on that. Probably the other big news that's got everybody abuzz is, they did another round of I guess, policing their own game. Another round of temp and perma bans went through late last week, for various mods. And this is always a controversial topic when it comes up. It's hard to discuss stuff like this because, it's good to see wargaming policing their own game. And anybody who has ever played an online game that's just rife with cheaters and hackers, you desperately want the company, the publishers, to care about the integrity of their game. And wargaming in World of Warships has very clearly demonstrated that time and time again. Inevitably, there's always the people who insist that, oh, I was caught up in this, I'm not actually using anything. And I guess, we'll never know, right? We won't. To me, that's between wargaming and the players in question. You always hear people saying, oh, I don't use mods, oh, I use vanilla client. I'll tell you guys, I've been using mods for several years now. Always. There's several mods I always have installed. I've never had a false flag. I've been using Aslan's pretty much since the day it was available, more than 3.5 years ago. Since I started playing 3.5 years ago, I've never had one of these emails. So in my mind, as long as you're sticking to stuff that should be okay, then you're okay. You should be fine. Now I know the reshade mod caused a lot of problems last year, and I think maybe there are some people in this round of things that are caught up in perhaps the remnants of that. I don't have any idea how much of the game client reshade modifies or how many things it changes, but in general, wargaming is not going to talk about this. They're not going to explain to you what's going on in terms of what's happening in the background. They're just going to tell you, hey, you've been busted, or we see something suspicious. Here's a temp or a warning, or if it's your repeat offender, get out for good. But to me, the biggest story to come out of this, and this is a personal beef of mine, so I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a minute, and I'll apologize if this offends you, but for me, it's disappointing to see some of the mods that don't make this list. And for me, my crusade really begins and ends with two particular mods, and that's Running Lights and Navigator. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with mods, I'll give you a quick brief on what these two do. Running Lights is a mod that basically puts a small colored dot over the ship in your in-game interface that colors itself based on how the ship is moving. Green essentially means the ship is moving quickly, full speed. Yellow means it is moving at some portion of speed. Red means it is at full stop. And then I believe purple means its ship is moving in reverse. Now, for most ships in the game, I won't say most, for a lot of ships in the game, any ship with torpedoes, right? If you have a ship with torpedo armament, anytime you want to know which direction a ship is moving, or you're having a hard time detecting, is it moving forward, is it moving left, moving forward or backwards, you can switch to your torpedo armament, look at the torpedo lead indicator, and see what it's doing. Oh, okay, the ship is moving. He's moving forward. He's slowing down. He's reversing. The torpedo lead indicator can be used as, I won't say a cheat, but as an assist to help you determine how a ship is moving. But if you're in a battleship, let's say, any other battleship in the game that's not named Scharnhorst or Tirpitz, you don't have a torpedo lead indicator. So if you're using Running Lights, you clearly have an advantage over a battleship player that isn't. The other thing that I've had some discussions on this, and this is something I haven't gotten a lot of practice doing, but in my mind, a ship that's bow on to you, right, that you can't really see their smoke, because that's how you're supposed to gauge how fast a ship is going. When it's moving left or right across your screen, let's say, you can look at the trailing smoke out of the stack and help to determine how quickly it's moving. But if a ship is bow on to you, You can't see that smoke. You have no idea how fast that ship is moving. Running lights, again, provides a clear advantage because the mod is going to tell you, oh, he's reversing. Oh, he's moving forward. Now, I had somebody tell me that, well, you can actually use the wakes around the bow to tell if someone is moving forward or backwards when they're bow on. And that may be true. I don't know. I've never tried it. That's a possibility. But running lights really irritates me, guys, because for an entire class of ships in the game, it is a clear advantage that they ordinarily would not have. The other one that sticks out in my mind that I really, really despise is Navigator. And again, for those of you that don't use mods, I'll give you a quick primer. Navigator places a small display in your HUD that shows you the exact angle that you have to your current locked-on target and the exact angle that they have to you. Now, ordinarily, most players will be like, who cares? But if you understand the AP mechanics of the game and you understand the ricochet angles, the innate ricochet angles that shells have, this is a huge, huge advantage for you because you can see exactly what angle that an opponent has to you and know, oh, my AP is not going to bounce. I'm not going to ricochet probably if I hit him at this angle. There's always the chance you'll hit, an angled piece of armor or something. But in general, you'll know, oh, I should be firing AP because he's right at 47 degrees angled to me, whereas the ricochet angle is 45. So if I fire AP at him at this angle, I'm going to be good. Those shells are going to bite, and I'm probably going to get full pens, maybe even citadels. To me, Navigator is... You can make the argument that Navigator is not a cheat. It's not a cheat. Wargaming has said it's not a cheat. You can make the argument that Navigator is not an extreme advantage because if you play the game long enough, you learn what angles to expect your shells to do damage at, and you're not wrong. But in my mind, it's too much. It's over the top. You're giving someone exact, precise data versus having the experience, right? They earned that experience the hard way by playing the game and learning these things. My opinion is irrelevant here, right? Wargaming's opinion is the one that matters. Wargaming says these mods are okay, and that's the way it is. So if you use this stuff, hey, more power to you, right? Wargaming says it's fine. I used to use them. I quit using them years ago because I found them to be too much. There is a big long Reddit thread with some of Sub-Octavian's comments regarding mods. I'll link that below. It is worth a read, especially if you use mods. You need to understand where the boundaries are, what the tools you have available to find out everything's okay, and understand that Wargaming is very passionate about the modding community. They want you guys to use mods if you want, but they have to keep an eye on things. Lastly, and I mentioned this earlier, of course, this weekend I am working PAX South, so if you happen to be in San Antonio, you're coming to the convention, drop on by and say hello. I'll be working the Fantasy Flight Games booth 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day, demoing their Keyforge card game. I don't know anything about Keyforge. I've never played it before in my life, but I'm going to teach other people how to play it. I've been doing this for a couple of years, working with Fantasy Flight at various gaming conventions, and it's a tremendous amount of fun. So come on by. I'll also be at the player gathering that Wargaming is hosting here on Saturday evening. Feminenally, Kami Samurai, Radar X, and B-Ted are coming down to the con from Austin, from Wargaming Austin. They're going to be around during the weekend, I think probably on Friday and Saturday, and on Saturday night, they're hosting a player gathering. So if you happen to have signed up for that on the forums, hint, hint, I'll post that link down below. You should definitely come on by and say hello. If you happen to catch me sometime during the con, ask me for a business card. I will happily hook you up, and I will clue you in on how you can use that to tag me later on to turn that into some CC loot for your person. Okay, guys, that's it. Busy week, busy weekend, and lots going on. It's a busy time in Warships. Lots of changes coming. We're just going to see how it all plays out. Game in the background was a heartbreaking Nurnberg loss. This game was a tragedy. We almost clawed it back. We did not quite make it. Simply ran out of time. My team refused to sacrifice position. Refused to sacrifice health to maintain the positions we needed to maintain cap control long enough. The enemy team spent like 8 minutes, over 800 points. We kept killing, and finally in the end, time just ran out on us, and we couldn't do anything. But I had a good game. So anyways, thanks, guys, and I will catch you guys later.